Hello, it is Jack Gill, and welcome to Redmen Academy. I am joined by James. I hope you're all enjoying the warm weather from your gardens. James, we're going to go for something a bit different today. We're going to do the best player at each Premier League team. So yeah, we'll go with the first 10 teams today, and then tomorrow we'll bring you the second 10. So let's kick it off, James, with Arsenal, and I've gone with Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang.
Yeah, same here. I don't think there's anyone else really that could have gone for, especially this season. His goals have been so important for Arsenal, and he's consistently performing again, even though he's 30 now, 31 in the summer.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, he joined Arsenal in 2018, and last season he went on to be joint Golden Boot winner this year as well. His goals have been not only instrumental to Arsenal, but he seems to be the man that pops up for them. It was quite an easy one because at the minute Arsenal have an underachieving but poor squad. Considering the club they once were.
Yeah.
One thing that has been consistent and does always pop up with a goal is Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and
I mean,
yeah,
20 goals in 32 games says it already, doesn't it?
yeah,
Like, his goal scoring rate's unreal, and he's not dropping off, even though the rest of the team seemingly have. He's stayed at that level, and he's performing. He's the reason why they're not fifth on the table.
absolutely. 31 goals last season in all competitions, and 20 goals in all competitions so far this season before it was obviously halted. I don't think there's a shadow of a doubt that it's Arsenal. Moving on to Aston Villa, again, a pretty straightforward one. But there's still a couple of people that we could have picked. Jack Grealish is who I've gone for as their best player. Have you done the same, James?
Yeah, same here, really. Wasn't an easy one. I know obviously Tyrone Mings has been very good for them this season, as well as John McGinn.
Yeah.
But easily, Jack Grealish has been the standout player.
That's the thing for me. I think obviously Mings and John McGinn are a very, very good player. I think John McGinn was a close second for me. But Jack Grealish this season has shown that he's an outstanding player, and I think he's a standout player for them. I really do. I think he's been outstanding, and there was a lot of question marks over Grealish's head going into the season. Could he help them? Could he carry them through and help them survive this season? And it's been difficult for him. Their signings, I don't think, have helped him as much as Villa fans would have hoped for.
Yeah.
But one thing that has been outstanding is Grealish, and to pick his best goal this season, it will have to be that one against Man United. It's an outstanding finish, and he's popped up for Villa time and time again this season. It's not just his goals; it's everything. He seems to carry them at times. He really has been good, and if they survive, it will absolutely be down to him. But even looking to last season, they were really struggling. And Grealish comes back from injury and gets them on a really good and beaten run and into that playoffs. So he did really well, and he's definitely a player that I'm sure many top six clubs are looking at to try and sign. An outstanding talent.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously, kind of been easy for him this season going into the Premier League again after obviously not doing brilliantly when he was a little bit younger. But last season he got 6 goals, 6 assists in 31 games. This season he's bettered it already with 7 goals and 6 assists in 26 in the Premier League. So he's acclimatised perfectly, and that's obviously going to be encouraging for any teams that want to come after him because he's shown that he can step up his level.
Well, one thing I want to talk about, James. Obviously, we've got Jack Grealish here, who is we both said a fine player, and one that many clubs will be looking at to try and sign should Villa go down. You see, I see him as a player that may actually be doing so well because of the position he's in at Aston Villa, where he's the best player. He's a big fish in a small pond, and that's no disrespect to Villa. I know that they once were a massive club, and they still are a big club. They've got a big stadium, a good supporters group. But I don't think Grealish will have the same effect if he goes elsewhere. I think his attitude might hurt him and hold him back a bit.
Yeah, I think he needs to find a team where they're willing to sort of make accommodations for him and let him do what he's sort of best at doing. Whereas that's quite hard to find at a top team where they're willing to build around a lad who's, not proven at the very highest level yet and is only, in his first, real season in the Premier League.
Absolutely. to move on now to Bournemouth, this is one where I think we'll have a couple of different ones here. I went with Nathan Ake. I think he's an absolute rock at the back. You know, Bournemouth do concede a lot of goals, but it'd be a lot more if it wasn't for this man. You know, he was wanted by Chelsea in the summer, supposedly. He's a superb player and a superb defender, and you know, I think he'd get into a lot of defences in the Premier League. I really do think he's outstanding. But again, there still different players could have picked. I could have gone with Ryan Fraser, Harry Wilson, Callum Wilson. I think deserves a shout because he scores a lot of goals for Bournemouth. I know he hasn't done too many this season, but he struggled. He's been in and out of injury this season, but I had to go with Ake because he's always consistent, he's always there, and he's always Bournemouth's main man at the back.
Yeah, I did consider going with Ake myself, but I went with Philip Billing purely because the way he's come into the team after obviously doing well with Huddersfield the last few years, he's come into this side and he's really stabilised that midfield where they didn't really have a holding player and someone who'd let them play this attacking football, which they've sort of got a reputation for now. And I know, as you said, they've conceded quite a few goals this season, but he's putting in numbers like 2.4 tackles per game in the league, 2.2 interceptions, and you've got to wonder how much worse off they'd be without him in this side. And he's covering up, I think, for a very lacklustre season. And without him, I think they'd be almost confirmed to be in the relegation zone.
Brighton, James, do you want to go first in this one?
Yeah, so I went with Neil Maupay, who I'm guessing you've probably gone for as well. I'm not too sure. Okay. Yeah, really good player. Come into the side, obviously, from Brentford in the summer. 25 goals and 8 assists last season. Now this season, 8 goals and 2 assists in 28. So he's come into this side, and obviously they've got Glenn Murray, who's not getting any younger. And hopefully, I think the intention is he's going to continue to provide goals for them going in and playing this expansive football, which Graham Potter wants. And I've been really impressed by him. Obviously, he's had quite a big rise the last few years, and it doesn't look like he's going to be slowing down anytime soon.
I went with Lewis Dunk. I had to, the skipper at the back for Brighton. Again, Mr. Consistent for them. He's another rock at the back, like Nathan Ake, and a quality leader for Brighton. And he even pops up with a goal at the other end. He's an outstanding player. I think he's one of them typical Premier League defenders, which Brighton don't seem to lack. But he's an outstanding player again, and as I say, what Brighton need at the back when you fight relegation is a player that can be there and put in an outstanding performance to make sure you get a clean sheet, and Lewis Dunk does that time and time again. And even in those performances where he's defending really well against sort of lower league opposition, he also pops up with a goal, and he's a fantastic centre back, and I think he's their best player. But Neil Maupay is also a great shout. I think he's very young, and there's a lot more to come from Maupay, and I think he'll be an excellent player in the future. To move on, Burnley now, James, you go first.
So I went with James Tarkowski. Obviously, I know they're known for their defensive football at times, and I think to pick anyone other than a centre back, I just don't think it'd do the way they play justice. They rely heavily on their defenders, and obviously Tarkowski's not just a tough tackling player. There was he can play the ball out the back, which you wouldn't really expect, but it seems to work really well for them. And he's cool under pressure too. He doesn't seem to have many mistakes when he's pressed, which you don't tend to see for players that are playing for lower level teams. And yet you can see why he's every season he seems to be linked with a sort of top 10 club, a more established top 10 club, should I say, because he has a very complete game.
I went with Nick Pope. I think he's had an excellent season this season. There's question mark over his head whether he's going to step up and be England's number one, with obviously Pickford having a bit of a mare this season and having incredibly small arms. And also, obviously, he's got the most clean sheets in the Premier League this season. I think he's a brilliant goalkeeper. And I think there's more to come from this man as well. As I say, I wonder if he gets more confidence with getting that England number one shirt, then hopefully it'll bring out the best in him as a keeper. I reckon he could be a goalkeeper for some of the top 6 clubs. I really do think he's an outstanding goalkeeper. Obviously not up there with like Alisson or Edison, players like that. But at the minute, there's some clubs in the Premier League that are a lot better than Burnley that could do with a goalkeeper like Nick Pope. So, I think he's their best player, and he definitely has been their best player this season. But I think he's their best player overall. And Chelsea, a player for me that hasn't been their best player this season because he's been out injured for a lot of it, and that's N'Golo Kante. I don't think there's doubting that he is the one player in that team that would probably fit into most of the teams in the world. He's an outstanding defensive midfielder, and also in the last couple of years he's shown that he can play in the 8 as well. He's been outstanding. He's the first player to win the Premier League for 2 different clubs in back-to-back seasons since Eric Cantona. He's a very, very, very good talent. I really do think he's an outstanding player. Who did you go for, James?
So I went a little bit left field. I went with Willian, purely because he's featured in all but one game this season for Chelsea. He's obviously had a tough time recently, hasn't he? The fans at the start of the season seem to have wanted him to leave. They weren't happy with him. And yet, in 21 starts and 7 appearances, he's got 5 goals, 5 assists, and he's turned up when it's mattered, and they've struggled out wide at times. And then this season, they seem to have relied a lot upon him, and he's consistently performed. And I think fans now are slowly saying, we wouldn't mind if he stayed around now for another year. They were keen to ship him out. I think Barcelona were linked at one point, but he's himself an important player now.
You had all the players to choose from for Chelsea, and you went with you went with Willian.
Well, I went with who's appeared the most. Well, he's been injured, hasn't he? He's not really done it this season. I wonder who's been the best this season.
Season, though. I'm talking about the wider. James, that's poor from you.
I'm sticking by it.
Fans will be having a go at you right now too. Horrible shout. N'Golo Kante easily for me. Crystal Palace. I went with Wilfried Zaha. I think he's still got things to learn. 26, 27 now. But I think he's their best player. I think Milivojevic needs a shout as well. But Zaha's the man that can do anything. Milivojevic scores a lot of set piece goals, but Zaha can produce magic at any point in the game. I think this season he hasn't had the greatest of seasons. But he's a player that, again, many top 6 clubs have had on their radar for a while because everyone knows he's got the talent. It's just his attitude and the fact he's for me, he's Palace's best player. There's also Gary Cahill to talk about, obviously, former Premier League winner. And I think Chelsea offloaded him this year thinking he was on his last legs, but he's had an outstanding season for Crystal Palace. Who did you go for, Jane?
Well, I'm with Zaha as well. Obviously, as you said, he's been a little bit not at his best this season. Obviously, 3 goals and 5 assists, but he's played every single game for them. He's made himself such an important player now, and everything comes through him, whether it's directly with goals and assists or whether he's hassling defenders or looking to drift inside or pull players out of position. He does it so well, and without him, they are noticeably worse side. I think that's how you can tell the quality of a player. How much are they missed when they're not playing.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you there. A very difficult one now because most of their players are shit. Everton, who did you go for?
I went for Richarlison. I do like Richarlison. I really like him as a player. Obviously, only young as well, still only 22. And this season, obviously, 10 goals, 3 assists, similar form to last season too. And he looks on course to have his best season yet for them. I do like him. I really do like him as a player.
I went with Richarlison as well, James. But my issue with Richarlison is I don't think he knows what his best position is either.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean there? It's good to have a diverse player, but I don't think he knows what his favourite and best position is. But as you say, he's had a very good season again, and there's no doubting that he's a very good player. He just is, and he's that one star in the Everton team. I think who looks like a player that can be world class at the moment. I think Digne deserves a shout, and Calvert-Lewin as well is getting there.
But definitely the top 3 for me.
Just off it at the minute. But yeah, Digne as well, I think, has had a bit of a bad season. I think he is a good player. Leicester, I went with Jamie Vardy, and I think this man's story is equally as brilliant as his game now. You know, he's come right from the bottom of English football, worked his way up to the top, won the Premier League, and you know, again, he's getting old now, but he's the current Premier League top scorer. He's had another outstanding season, and in the last few weeks when Leicester have been missing him because he's been out injured, Leicester has struggled. He is so key for them, and I think without a doubt Leicester's best player. I also think James Maddison's worth a shout. I think he's an outstanding talent too, and Yuri Tielemans I think is a class player.
Yeah, it was hard to pick anyone other than Vardy, to be honest. You know, 19 goals this season is unreal in the Prem. Like, he's just consistently hitting new heights, and he's getting older and older. You know, he's obviously started out as quite an older player, didn't he? And yet he still having form like this now and being such a central player, you know, to a top 6 side now, but an established side. And I know like the likes of Soyuncu have been very good this season, and same as Tielemans, but Vardy's miles ahead.
Absolutely.
Importance as well.
Ndidi as well. I didn't mention Ndidi yet.
Exactly,
he is an absolute star.
So hard to pick players.
His work is so underrated.
Mm-hmm.
I can't believe we didn't mention him. Yeah, he's an outstanding player, Wilfred Ndidi, and a player that I wouldn't mind at Liverpool, you know, because I really think he is absolute class, and he's a big reason Leicester are where they are at the minute. You know, he's been phenomenal this season for them. Liverpool, you know, this would be very difficult for me if it wasn't for the fact that we have one of the top 3 players in the world in this team, and that's Virgil van Dijk for me. You know, we have a lot of world-class players at the minute. Salah, Mane are just another couple that came close. But for me, Virgil van Dijk is the absolute standout player. You know, he came into this side when we had a defence that really struggled, and he absolutely turned it around. And as I say, for me, one of the best players in the world right now, and I'd go far as saying one of the top 3, along with Messi and Ronaldo. I think he's outstanding. He's definitely the best defender in the world, and you know, for the second full season, he's just been truly the best, and a massive reason that Liverpool are where we are in the league right now. So that's my pick. And for you, James, you want to pick Van Dijk?
Yeah, Virgil van Dijk. It wasn't easy. You know, so let's look at the team and actually think, really, if I took this player out of the team, would we be noticeably worse? And I think we can cope at times without one of the front 3. You know, either we have players who can fill in, but the likes of Henderson and Van Dijk and Alisson, we aren't the same team without them. And ultimately came with Van Dijk purely because of how much he's changed our game since arriving, and how we seem to struggle defensively so much without him, because he's such a big leader in the side.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Salah and Mane are obviously very close. I think they're very close to him in being, you know, in that top 3 best players in the world. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold in a few years could be definitely an outstanding player. He's very close at the minute. He's already outstanding, but you know, I think he's obviously a bit off Van Dijk at the moment. Robertson also another world-class player, but for me it has to be Virgil van Dijk. I think he is outstanding. And that concludes today's show. We'll be back tomorrow for part 2. Hope you make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the video as well. Get us a few more views during this tough time. Cheers, James, again, and we'll be back tomorrow for part 2. Ta-ra.